Hey folks, Rob here. So this video is the first of a three-part series of a presentation I did in April of 2025 in Southern California for most of the large fly fishing clubs there. This is a compressed version of my Pyramid Lake program that I give presentations to, shows and outings all over the country. This highlights how the fishing has changed over the last 15 years or so and how we fish the lake today and what we have to offer in the future. So anyway, enjoy, folks. We're catching some really big fish out at the lake, and we would love to have you come join us.
I am. When I first started working at the Reno Fly Shop in 2001, that was kind of the time that websites were just getting going, and little mom and pop stores like the Reno Fly Shop, we didn't have a website. So we put one together, and not too long after that, we had, our first internet presence there at the shop. At the same time, people were coming into the shop all the time and asking about how to fish Pyramid Lake. And we would sit there in the fly shop and teach them. Why? Because there were no guides at Pyramid. There were two guys that were tribal members that did trolling trips, but no fly fishing guides or anything. So I went to the tribe. And how many people in the room have never been to Pyramid Lake? Quite a few. Wow. So Pyramid is 45 minutes from Reno. It's on an Indian reservation. So that's why nobody guided it, because it wasn't a Nevada guide license per se. So I went to a tribal council meeting and worked out a deal with them, and we became the first guides at Pyramid. Well, not too long after that, I built a website to kind of capture the guide clients for the shop. And then the fly shop closed in 2010, 15 years ago. And when it did, I kept my part of the business going. I kept guiding, and I took over the travel business and stuff. And anyway, I redesigned the website and included an online store. But the reason I'm telling you this is, if you go to Pyramid Lake, whether you go with me or not, if you're going up there, this website is a great way to get started. There's a lot of good information here. There is a drop down here called trip planning, and on it, there's pages on the weather forecast and the wind conditions, gear and techniques, how to fish the lake, those kind of things. And what we do is, if you've never been to Pyramid, we walk out in the lake in waders and climb on a ladder and stand on a ladder and fish for trout. It's a thing. And I'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute. But anyway, so if you're going to the lake, even if you don't go with me, I'm just telling you, just go. The website's pretty cool. So because we stand on ladders, I have a ladder rental program at the lake. I've got a lady that lives out there that we keep them in her yard, and you drive out there and you grab one, you use it, you take it back, drop it off when you're done. It's the honor system, and it works out really well. And they're not ladders. They're fabricated. The ones that we rent and use for our guide service, they fold up. They have wheels. They got seats. It's comfortable fishing. And then after the fly shop closed, I started an online store so that we could still provide, all of the flies that we were selling through the fly shop back then, and still today sell all the famous Pyramid flies there on the shop. So how many of you have fished Pyramid Lake before? How many years have you fished Pyramid Lake? Recently, long time ago? Okay, real quick history lesson on Pyramid. Pyramid today, it's got these giant cutthroat trout in it. It wasn't always like that. So when I first started fishing the lake in the early 2000s, Pyramid was a numbers fishery. And as a guide, it was great because, that was about the time we figured out that these fish would eat midges. And, it became easy for guide clients because, if you can roll cast an indicator rig, you can catch a trout. And, we're catching 30, 40, 50 fish a day. And every once in a while, somebody would catch a big one. Okay, there's a new strain of trout in the lake now that's been in the lake for quite some time, but it's really starting to shape the lake and the way it fishes now. And everybody I talk to and all these club meetings I go to and shows, everybody remembers 15 years ago and having a 30 fish day and they're all 20 inches and that kind of thing. So anyway, it started to affect my guide business because the lake, the way it fished is changing, the species of fish, the way they stock it. So I had to kind of refigure it out. So I put out a couple videos. They're on my YouTube channel, Bucket List Fly Fishing. If you haven't seen it, you should go check it out. We got a ton of good videos. Anyway, this is just a little piece of one of the videos I did.
So most of us think that catching Lahontan cutthroat trout is supposed to look like this. What if I told you that catching giant Lahontan cutthroat trout could also look like this?
Trout. This is a trout.
So I've been giving presentations on Pyramid Lake for 20 years. And when I worked at the fly shop, people that didn't understand the whole ladder thing would come in or call us or at a show would go, well, why don't we do this out of float tubes? And back then the best fishing was January, February, March, and April, basically the winter time. And the water's 42 degrees and there's these winter storms coming over the Sierras. And you don't want to be in a float tube in Pyramid Lake. And for years we talked people out of it. And when I talked about back then in these presentations, changing conditions, Pyramid has no outflow. So the Truckee River feeds it, starts in Lake Tahoe, runs through Truckee, out through Reno, and then into Pyramid Lake. And it doesn't go anywhere once it gets to Pyramid. So the lake level is totally dependent on our snowpack versus the summer evaporation. So the lake's always changing. And that's what I used to tell people. If you go to your favorite spot next year, the lake's dry. We had a bad winter. It's probably only 5 feet deep there. It was 8. That's what we used to talk about. Today, when I talk about changing conditions, I'm talking about the stocking program and how the lake has changed. In most of the presentations I give on Pyramid Lake, in a setting like this, half the people in the room know what I'm talking about. And they, have been there and they're like, light goes off. They're like, oh my God, you're right. So you understand it. This is a stocking graph from the years 2000 until 2017. And pretty much what they were doing, 15, 16, 17 is what they're doing today. But if you go back to 23, 24, 25 years ago, in 2003, that year, they put 1.8 million trout back in Pyramid Lake through their stocking program. As the years went on, the bottom of this, there's some writing down here. So I'll give you another little history lesson. In the 1930s and 40s, farming started becoming more popular in the Reno area, and they started putting dams in the Truckee and sucking all the water out of the Truckee, and it wasn't making it to Pyramid Lake. They killed the lake in the 1940s. There were no trout in Pyramid. So the 50s, they started this hatchery program to put fish back in the lake. They found a cutthroat trout in Oregon in a lake called Summit Lake that they thought was the same fish. So they've been putting those fish in Pyramid since the 1950s. This blue graph is that Summit Lake strain of what's called a Lahontan cutthroat trout. Okay. The red graph is a second strain that they found and started putting in the lake in 2006. That is deemed the Pilot Peak strain because of the area they found those. It was in a mountain range called Pilot Peak. Anyway, the second strain of fish grows faster, and they're more voracious, and they've changed the fishing. So now we have one of my guides today his client caught a 21-pound trout on a fly rod at Pyramid Lake today. Back when I first started fishing the lake, that, you'd hear of a 10-pounder every month or so, one guy. Now it happens every day, more times than not. So what has happened to Pyramid Lake is it's a trophy fishery now and not a numbers fishery. We used to catch 50 fish a day. Now we catch 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, but you got a chance at fish of a lifetime legitimately any day you go to the lake now. Okay. So I put 3 really important videos out on my YouTube channel. The first one called Fishing in June to really educate the people that were fishing with us that had maybe given up on my guide service or Pyramid Lake itself because the fishing got tougher. And it's like, hey, we figured it out again. We just got to go in June instead of March, basically, which is what this video was. The second one, Pyramid has a different season. It opens October 1 every year and closes June 30 and is closed July, August, September. The water's too warm in the lake in those months, and they protect the trout. They leave it alone, and the water skiers take over for 3 months, and let them have it. It's fine. So I put out a second video that explains how to fish the lake no matter when you go, October, November, January, whatever. That one's really good. And then the last video, which you saw a piece of it just now, was just called "We've Been Doing This Wrong," and here's how to fish Pyramid these days. The Orange County Fly Fisher Club was my very first kind of liaison, were my guide service at Pyramid Lake. And I did outings with them in March for 17 years. And it fell apart because the fishing fell apart in March. And so what I have done is I've reapproached my old clients and hopefully my new clients and friends. And I've started putting together these outings that I do in October and June now when we can catch these fish again. So the difference is we do these outings out of float tubes and pontoon boats and kayaks and from the lake now, where before we used to do them. I own more ladders than anybody in Reno. So the Santa Cruz Club, this will be their 3rd June doing, this warmer weather fishing with us. And coming up for this year, I'm starting to put this outing thing back together again. And you guys don't know me very well, but I love to cook. I love to host, and I love to throw parties at fishing locations, basically. And that's what we do really well, like 8 to 12 person groups, where, you come out for a couple days and fish with us, and we take care of you, cater the whole thing, and we catch a bunch of fish. So this is this spring. Where it says public here, I put a couple of these together every June where I fill all the spots. So you can just, call me as an individual and say, Rob, I want to join your outing, come up and fish with us. Or the second way to do it is privately, where you call me and say, Rob, I got 10 guys, we're coming up. This is the dates we want, that sort of thing. And that is kind of why I wanted to talk about Pyramid with you guys a little bit tonight, because this is a really cool, fun thing to do. And you probably have enough interested people to think about putting something like this together. So how it works, it's 2.5 days. So day 1, you drive up. You show up sometime in the afternoon. We get you all rigged up, blow up your boat, whatever you're, make sure everything's working. It's warm at Pyramid then. If you have the ability to camp, we stay right on the beach, right where we're fishing, so we can keep all our stuff blown up and put together and, and fish for a couple days right there. And I'm sponsored by Traeger, and we do big barbecues on the beach and everything. So anyway, it's 2.5 days. So the first day you get there set up. If you camp, we set you up there. If not, there's trailers you can rent out there to stay in. And anyway, and then you fish 2 days with us, and we take care of all the food, and it's $350 total for the entire outing per person. So you're not going to find a way to go on a trip like this and learn a lake for less money. I know that. So anyway, this time of year, we are targeting this newer strain of fish, and the average size is nuts. They fight harder in this warmer water, and I love it. As I get older, I like fishing in shorts and T-shirts and, not when it's snowing and I'm pushing the ice out of my guides anymore. So anyway, for Pyramid Lake now, I have a guide service. I have 2 or 3 guides that work for me full time still, and we do these outings. October and June, our guide service and, and our outings are all flow tubing. And November through April in the winter months, we still do the shoreline guiding and fishing because the water's just too cold and the fish are in closer, and it's the better way to go. So the other thing that I have found is, yes, sir. No. You don't need a launch fee unless you have a regular boat. Or if you're like, say, pontoon boat or something has a motor, a trolling motor, you have to have the boat permit. But just like a float tube, it's not an extra fee for that. You just pay the fishing fee, which is like $24 a day, I think, to fish. So the one thing I have found about Pyramid Lake is May is impossible. Those fish spawn in the spring, and usually May, they're all weirded out. They're coming off the spawn, and it's tough. And especially back in the old days when, I was doing like 20 of these 2-day outings a spring with mostly Northern California fly clubs. So one year, me and one of my guides said, you know what, let's take a break and go fishing. So one May, we drive out to Eastern Nevada. We had heard about some places out there in this one reservoir called South Fork. So we drive out to Elko, Nevada to South Fork Reservoir. We catch a bunch of fish. And it's game on. It's like, all right, we're doing this every May.
So anyway, folks, thanks for tuning in and watching. We've got some pretty special opportunities out there if you'd like to go fishing with us in the future. Give us a call, send us a text, write us an email. We'd love to hear from you and what you thought of our video. Anyway, subscribe to our channel. It really helps out for others that might want to see this video as well. And we hope to see you out on the water sometime soon. Take care, everybody.